So this is chapter 8, entitled Attaining the Supreme, and the rest we will explore as we go. So please ask questions whenever you have a doubt. You can also be actively engaged. Take notes if you can, or at least like focus on the topic. So in the previous week also we did uh, see that how this chapter could be divided into 4 sections. So I'm going to repeat it today. So Arjuna begins this chapter with his questions. He asks 7 questions, and Krishna answers them. We will check in the review what are those questions and what are those answers. The first six questions he answers in just 2 verses, verses 3 and 4. And then the rest of the chapter is all about that question 7. The seventh question forms the crux of the rest of the chapter 8. And he utilizes this opportunity also to emphasize or the or show the contrast between the Ashtanga Yoga practice and Bhakti Yoga. And we will discuss why Arjuna is asking these questions, like when we see in detail things. And in the between the verses 5 and 8, Arjuna Krishna speaks about the importance of remembering him. And in the verses from 9 to 22, Krishna explains, okay, how to attain that remembrance. Okay, we understand remembering Krishna is very important. How do we develop that remembrance? And so there is a particular way through Ashtanga Yoga, he explains from verses 9 till 13. And then 14, 15, 16, Krishna explains about remembering him through the practice of bhakti. And then he explains how by remembering him through the practice of bhakti, one can achieve the spiritual realm. And in that connection, Krishna explains from verses 15 uh, onwards until verses 22. He compares and contrasts between the material realm and the spiritual realm, because he speaks in the verse 16, if I'm right. Yeah, 16, that one who focuses on Krishna in devotion attains the supreme abode. So from verses 17 to 22, he explains what is that spiritual abode, how is it different from the material world we are currently living in. So that is the topic of discussion between verses 17 and 22. So after discussing in this third section how to remember him through yoga and how to remember him through bhakti and what is the result of remembering him, and then he speaks about there are processes for actually making sure to remember at the time of death, because this particular topic is not just remembrance of Krishna but remembrance of Krishna at the time of death. So that part, that as that detail of remembering him at the time of death is taken up in the last section. So far in the verses 5 and 8 he described about remembering him, and between verses 9 and 22 he spoke about remembering him through yoga, remembering through bhakti, and what is the result of remembering him at the time of death. But here, very specifically in the last section, he is going to discuss how a yogi leaves his body and what are the ways. And there are two, the path of light and the path of darkness. And then Krishna speaks about how it is that one remembers him at the time of death when somebody is practicing bhakti. So these are some of the topics that Krishna will be discussing. And Bhagavad Gita is so layered. Many different themes and many different emphases could be given for every chapter. So we are mostly discussing based on the emphasis that Srila Prabhupada gives for this chapter. There are few more things we could pick up, but Srila Prabhupada like kind of stays on a certain focus. He keeps a certain focus, and we'll try to retain that focus for the chapter because it has its own significance why Prabhupada does what he does. So any questions before even we start? Anyone has anything to share? Questions, thoughts? Okay, so feel free to raise your hands digitally if even if I'm not able to see you everyone in one screen. Thank you, Madhurendra, for reminding about recording. And between verses 1 and 4, Arjuna asked, in the first two verses, he asked 7 questions. What are those 7 questions? We did discuss the last time, but we had a long break. Let's see that quickly. Like Arjuna asked, what is Brahman? What is called as Adhyatma? What is Karma? What is Adi Bhuta? What is Adi Daiva? What is Adi Yagya? And how to remember him at the time of death. These are the 7 questions that Arjuna asked to Krishna. And Krishna explained to him what is Brahman, what is Adhyatma, and what is Karma. So let's see, the verses are explaining them. Okay. So in the first two verses, these are his questions. And in the third verse, Krishna is saying, okay, what is Brahman? That is that indestructible transcendental living entity. Because Brahman is one word which can refer to the supreme, which can refer to the soul, which can sometimes refer to the material creation, and or Brahman sometimes can refer to the impersonal effulgence of the Supreme Lord coming from the Supreme Lord's body. So the same word could refer many ways. But here Krishna actually chooses to, in this context, to use the word Brahman in the context of soul. He says the soul is also Brahman because it is indestructible. It shares the spiritual quality. And this is then what is Adhyatma? So the eternal nature of the soul is called as Adhyatma. And what is karma are those activities we do which creates our future bodies, that is called as karma. Whatever we do now, either uh, it can create in our future situation, like whatever we do currently. It could be a spiritual situation or it could be a material situation, but it is all dependent on our current actions. So here specifically, the word karma Krishna uses in the context of activities which leads to more material bodies. It could be good karma or bad karma. Both leads to uh, in the future receiving a body in order to experience that good result or the bad result. So in that context, karma here refers Krishna is using the word karma in the context or explaining it in the context of activities which result in future body. So in the previous chapters we saw that how karma, three types are there: akarma, vikarma, and karma, or sukarma. So here this word is specifically referring to the good karma and the bad karma, both together here being referred to as actions pertaining to the development of future material bodies. And in verse 4, Krishna explains how the remaining three topics, Adibhuta, Adidaiva, and Adiyagya. He says Adibhuta is the material world, Adi Daiva are the demigods, but the demigods are all part of the universal form of the Lord. So, in that sense, the universal form of the Lord is the Adi Daiva, and Adi Yagya is the enjoyer of all sacrifices in one sense, the Lord of all sacrifices. Specifically, Krishna uses, there are many manifestations of his, but the specific manifestation that he chooses is the super soul, is the Adi Yagya for this particular world. So he is the one whom we offer all our activities to. So he chooses to represent the super soul, who's situated in everyone's heart, observing everything and accepting everything that we do. So he is considered as Adiyagya. So far Krishna explains 6 of the answers. What is Brahman, the indestructible living entity? What is Adhyatma, the nature of the self? And what is Karma, that which creates future activities? What is Adibhuta is the material manifestation. This world is the Adibhuta. The universal form is the Adidaiva. And the Supreme Lord in our heart is the Adiyagya. So these are the 6 answers he gives. He does not get into the detail. He just gives concise answers because he has a certain topic in mind. It's like, say, for example, I'm speaking on a certain topic. Someone has a question, somewhat related, but answering it in detail will actually result in a tangent to the topic that I am discussing. So what I'll do, I'll just answer briefly, minimal, like the pointed answer. So similarly, Krishna wants to describe about Bhakti Yoga in this section, chapter 7 to 12, and he is discussing a certain aspect. Suddenly, Arjuna has put these questions which are slightly tangential. It's not unrelated, but slightly tangential. Especially if Krishna starts speaking in detail about these topics, it will become a tangential topic. That is why he chooses to answer them pointedly and gets back to his original topic. However quickly he could, he's trying to get back to his original topic. So these are the uh, things that we discussed in the 1 to 4. So the natural question is, why is Arjuna asking all these questions? Why is he so tangential? The reason is, it's not completely Arjuna is to be blamed here, because Krishna, if you remember verses 29 and 30 in chapter 7, if you have reference, something to quickly refer, you can turn back your pages or your on your laptop. Verses 29 and 30 of chapter 7, Krishna speaks about knowing him even at the time of death. And he touches upon all these terms, Adi Agya, Adi Bhuta, Adi Daiva, all these terms he touches upon. So that is why Arjuna wants to ask, okay, what is this? What are these topics that you are speaking about? And that is the reason he is asking these questions. And he is also very intrigued about this concept of remembering him at the time of death. So he's like kind of very intrigued. So that's why he is adding all of those questions together and asking. Krishna chooses to answer the topic of remembering him at the time of death elaborately. And then the rest of the questions, he just gives pointed answers. So through this whole section, we can understand like our concerns shows our consciousness in life. Our inquiry shows our internal values. So that is why it is important. We see here Krishna, Arjuna's concern is to know about these topics. So we can think like, what is the concern of in my life? What are the different things that I want to understand more and explore more? Because the quality of our life is determined by the quality of our questions. So what kind of questions we have in our heart? What kind of things we actually want to explore? And also we see the power of remembrance that Arjuna is specifically asking, oh, what is the importance of how can one remember you at the time of death? So we can understand how im- uh, powerful the act of remembrance is, especially remembering Krishna at the time of death. So, and we will see the importance in the future verses 5 to 8. And we all can uh, ask these questions to ourselves, because what is our what is my frequent questions, what are those frequent questions in my head, and how does it show where is my focus in life, and also what kind of daily practices I can actually develop in order to be able to remember the Supreme Lord. So in this way we can actually understand the importance of these questions that Arjuna is asking. So this is a nice quote, that to ask the right question is already half the solution of a problem, because Arjuna is a student of Krishna and Krishna wants to enlighten him in certain topics. So when Arjuna asks the right question, it becomes easy for Krishna to present what he wants to give to Arjuna. So it makes the aspect of learning, the process of learning, much easier when the student has the right question. So that is why Krishna becomes very happy when Arjuna asks the right questions. He becomes very excited. And we can see this specifically in the Srimad Bhagavatam, when Suta Goswami or Shaunaka Rishis or Parikshit Maharaj, they ask the right question. The speaker becomes very happy. They immediately congratulate. Oh, thank you for asking nice questions. It's so inspiring that you're asking these questions. It's very helpful. So they become very happy when they ask the right question, because it helps us unpack things much better. And also, when there is hunger, the food tastes better. When there are right questions, you also know the answers will actually penetrate the heart. So that is why asking the right question is already half the solution of the problem. And especially in spiritual inquiry, spiritual learning and enlightenment, having the proper inquiry, basically having the hunger is very important in spiritual life. We can have a lot of information, You can even start giving classes, and you can actually understand Bhagavad Gita on an intellectual level, and you can explain it to people. And it is not very difficult after a point. If you immerse yourself enough, it is not very difficult. Uh, but to actually develop a devotional, what do you call, devotional surrender to Krishna is not very easy. It does not come very cheaply. So to have that hunger in the heart for actually knowing Krishna and wanting to surrender to Krishna, is that hunger actually leads to right questions we will ask ourselves, and also it leads to the solution very easier. So that is like it's very important when we see Arjuna asking questions. He is actually ushering the conversation. He is giving direction to the conversation. He is shaping the conversation, not just their own conversation in the Kurukshetra. He is also shaping the aspect of knowledge that Krishna wants to offer to us. So, in that sense, these questions are very important aspect. And continuing on the theme of the Gita, this particular chapter. So, we saw now Arjuna asked 7 questions and Krishna answered 6 of them. So, he's going to pick up the seventh question and going to answer that in detail from verses 5 onwards. Hare Krishna. Anyone has any questions, thoughts? Just want to hear some voices in the room. Yes, Monik.
Sorry, Krishna Guruji. I had a question. If you can briefly go over what is the significance of asking the right question to the right person?
Mm.
Because I feel sometimes you might ask the right question, but if it's not the right person, maybe they might not provide the feedback that you need to correct yourself. So if you can just really briefly go over it.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes it's I have seen in my own life. Like I ask the right questions knowingly to the wrong people so that I don't get the right answer, then I'll have to follow the answers. Sometimes I'm like not yet ready for the right answer. I know the answer. At the same time, if I hear from the right person, I'll be forced to follow. So I ask the right questions, but to all kinds of random individuals so that I can just like feel good about myself. I ask right questions. I'm such a nice person, but I don't ask it to the right person. So I don't have the what do you call the weight of or the burden of having to follow the answer. I know
Mm,
if certain individuals answer me, I'll be obliged to follow it in my own life, and I'll feel guilty if I'm not able to follow. So I'll beat
mhm,
around the bush. So it's a process of growth. There's at least we know what are the right questions, and gradually Krishna will make us become more and more aware that who are the right people we need to ask. Because many times in your own intuition, you know that you're not, you know what is the right thing, and then you know who's the right person to ask and what are the right questions to ask. Still, you don't want to ask because you are not ready to follow it. So we can actually offer that as a prayer to Krishna. I have these questions. Please give me the right questions and also give me the right strength to ask it to the right people and the strength to actually follow that, because determination is a very important thing in spiritual life. So the quality of our spiritual life is depending on the quality of our determination. So to ask the right person, sometimes it takes determination uh, to commit to the answers that we receive. So that is another reason we actually don't go to the right people and ask. Sometimes we don't know really who's right, who's wrong. So through experience, you will realize, okay, sometimes the flavors differ. You have a very practical question sometimes, and some people may be actually having a certain like what do you call, like a certain mood. So they may approach the same practical aspect in a different way. Some people are detached, some people are more action oriented. So depending on who you ask, the answer could be very different. So you have to see what is your mood, what matches your immediate life. Does that person know who you are in your life? What are your circumstances? What are your practical situations? And how it will affect your life? And do they actually continue to, do they have that responsibility or accountability to continue to guide you? Okay, if there is a problem in that particular solution, will they be available to give you a change, an update to that solution that they offered? When you try and it does not work, do you have an option to go back to them and check with them, hey, you said such and such thing, I applied it, it didn't work, can you help me? So do you have that back and forth, the feedback loop with that person? So all that matters when you ask practical questions.
Thank you. That was helpful.
Okay, I hope that makes sense. Ritesh Prabhu.
Yeah, I had just had like a quick reflection that um it's mostly for me. I would never imagine myself where I am right now, like 3 4 years before. So I think it starts with sincerely praying and desire for it. So if we really desire for the right person to come into our lives who can actually answer our questions, of course it won't be like a binary question that we got it, but we'll know that we are in the right path in getting the answer ourselves.
Mm,
Knowing the answer and realizing the answers could be different. So yeah, basically just a reflection of like starts with sincerely praying and desiring for it
mm.
is what my yeah realization.
Yes, I really appreciate that. Yes, sometimes like praying actually is very important. Krishna sometimes waits for us to actually become eager. He doesn't just like that offer sometimes. And also, I've seen like sometimes we only pray when we really get beaten up in life, like something's dire, something like that really shakes us up happens, then it becomes very that becomes very easy to actually pray. Otherwise, it becomes not so easy. It doesn't come from the heart. So yeah, thank you. So here we are continuing on this topic uh, from verses 5 onwards, where we are going to discuss about the importance of remembering Krishna, or Krishna is going to explain to Arjuna importance of remembering him. So immediately, because this question is about remembering him at the time of death, Krishna starts explaining what is the importance of actually remembering him at the time of death. What happens actually? Let me check if I put verses also. Yeah. So we are going to directly refer to the translations in this chapter because it is much different from the previous chapters. It's a shorter chapter, and it's preferable to directly refer to the translations here. So in this verse 5, Krishna says that how at the end of one's life, if one quits the body remembering Krishna, then they can actually attain Krishna's nature, that is spiritual nature, the spiritual realm. So that is why it is important to actually remember Krishna at the time of death, because it helps. This is the result of that. So he is giving, okay, why it is so important to remember him, because one can achieve spiritual world or spiritual nature just by remembering Krishna. And he gives a general principle. Okay, what if I don't remember you? Okay, whatever state of being you have at the time of death, whatever is the state of consciousness, according to that state of consciousness, one will attain their future. So this is a general principle, and the specific application is, okay, that means if I remember Krishna, then I can achieve the spiritual nature. So then Krishna concludes in the chapter, in the verse 7, he says, oh, that's why you should always think of me, and then fight. So Krishna, Arjuna is like, okay, because now Krishna is saying, always think of me. He thinks, okay, I can give up the battlefield and go to a forest and sit there and think. He says, no, no, always think of me while fighting. So then it's like contradictory thing. I have to fight and I also have to think. How does those two things go together? So we'll discuss that. And then he says, with your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. So Krishna himself answers, with your activities dedicated to me. And so because Arjuna is going to fight in the battlefield. So when he's shooting arrows, is he only thinking of Krishna, or is he focusing, okay, where is the enemy, which direction he is going, how much pressure I should put on my arrows, in which direction I should shoot? Is he thinking of the practicalities? So that is why, yes, in a battlefield, it is very intense. Just imagine in our daily life, if we think, oh, I don't have attention to give to Krishna because I have my work, what to speak of in a battlefield? Like there, your life will be gone if you are not attentive. So it's much more serious than just a regular life. So Krishna is saying, even in the battlefield, he is saying, fight thinking of me. How that can be practically done is by dedicating one's activities. Okay, sometimes if you're cooking, you focus on the cooking. You're cooking for Krishna, but you cook with attention. And then whatever you cook at the end, you go and take it to Krishna and offer him. So while cooking, you may have in the background Krishna, but in the foreground is the process of cooking. Similarly, when we are working, in the foreground maybe the process is there, our actual work is there, but in the background Krishna can be there. And how does that happen? How does that background? How can we think of Krishna always? So that means by practicing daily sadhana, by kind of taking out the regulated time daily and practicing sadhana, like hearing every day, chanting every day, taking darshan. In this way, by doing regular sadhana, Krishna will be the part of uh, your what you call Krishna can be the at the background, even though in the foreground we may be focusing on our own work. Without that regular sadhana, we will not be able to have Krishna in the background. Krishna will not just be not in the background, but he will be completely out of the ground. If we are not practicing sadhana, it will be very difficult to remember Krishna without having a regulated sadhana. So that is why if you read Prabhupada's purport in these verses, it is very nice, especially the verse 7. He speaks about the importance of sadhana in that particular purport also. So if you really want to remember Krishna always, then we need to actually remember Krishna at least exclusively some part of day. Without remembering him exclusively in a given part of day, it is very difficult to always remember him. It does not happen. So start with some particular time where you are exclusively remembering him, trying to chant and trying to read and all that. Then the gradually it will lead to more and more remembrance of Krishna. And whatever we work we do during that time also, we'll have some what do you call awareness of Krishna. Yes, Purva.
Thank you. Yes, I have a question that might probably sound funny because it sounded funny to my mom. So I wanted to so I wanted to ask a question about chanting itself. When I try to chant the 16 rounds of the Mahamantra, um, so I close my eyes and I think about Krishna, like his image in front of my mind, and either the japmal it will slip from my finger and it will fall in the bag, or while if I focus on that, then I will forget about Krishna and something else will go in my mind. So how do I balance the both of them? Because I find like if I have to just chant Hare Krishna, I can do that throughout the day, even like while I'm sleeping also, while I can fall asleep to that. But if I have to particularly do 16 rounds, then I need to have the japmal in my fingers, and then it slips from my fingers every single time.
Don't put the burden on your mind to imagine something, even if it is Krishna's form. You can have a picture before your before you can display mantra card or things like that, and you can look at them. So your focus can be between few. Keep few, because our mind is already very like kind of uh, f- like always moving. So it's very difficult to bring it to one point of concentration immediately. Instead, give it a healthy devotional realm, like in the in what do you call, if you either have a pet dog, or like in the villages, if you see cows, they will tie the cow to a pole, but they won't tie it so tightly. It is not that the cow is like tied to the pole like this so shortly. No, they'll give some leeway for the cow to walk around, for roam around, graze around, but it cannot completely go away. So similarly, until our minds have become so trained that we can just hear Hare Krishna in a very completely absorbed way, and the emotion of chanting can become much natural. Until then, what we can do is create give the rope enough, but tie the rope to the pole. That means display a card, display a picture of Krishna, especially if you're chanting in your own house, it becomes much easier for you to make these arrangements. You can have in your wall some different paintings of Krishna, or pictures of Prabhupada, then pictures of Hare Krishna mantra. So between them, you can keep shifting so that you don't need to imagine. At the same time, your eyes are open, and you can focus on you can hold your beads also with attention. I'm not sure how much that addresses your.
Yes. Okay, I will give it a try this week.
Because
Thank you.
give it a bigger circle where it can remain, instead of trying to tell only one thing and then going everywhere in the world. Give it a smaller circle so that it roams within that. uh,
Okay.
it is much, it kind of gets better over years.
Okay. Thank you.
Harshal.
Uh, okay, Prabhu, Hare Krishna. So like all the way at the beginning, it was told like we were with Krishna, but because of like our greed, we came down to the material world.
Mhm,
But like everybody says that if you go to like Goloka, you never come back. So why did we come back? Because if you stay there, you stay there eternally.
mhm. So I think yesterday night also we discussed in the program, right? Something very similar. If you were, yeah. So towards the end of the program last night in the Bhakti Viksha, also a similar kind of a question propped up. So means it's very logical what you're asking. If we were there and we are here, so what is the guarantee that when we go back, we won't come back here? Is that the thing?
Yeah, about
Yeah.
it.
So the idea is, in general, like there are two schools of thought, that we were like never there in the same level of capacity that we are trying to achieve now. And there is the other school which does say yes, we were there, but the soul is always has a free will, because just because you go to the spiritual world back does not mean that you will not have free will to desire if you want to be separate from Krishna. So that desire is never taken away. So the opportunity is there, but because now there is an experience, and there, or so there, you, like there is no chance of returning in that sense.
Okay, Prabhuji, thank you.
Yeah, I mean it's not a very convincing answer. I means personally also, if I ask this question and I get this answer, I'll not be fully satisfied, because this particular topic is kind of inconceivable in some sense, because
Yeah.
we are trying to understand something which is beyond time, where there is no effect of time, there is no past, present, future. Everything is eternal in that realm. And we
Yeah.
are trying to understand that from our current reference, where everything is based on past, present, and future.
Mm-hmm.
So just remove time, then you will not be able to think. It does not actually make any, it's not a big deal when you remove time in that aspect, because
Mm.
before after, when you remove that, and in that eternal flow of time, when there is no before or after, then that whole, the whole argument actually falls flat when there is no material time.
Mm.
So that is why Prabhupada says, okay, currently where you are in the
Yeah.
material world, where you have to go to the spiritual world. What is the process? Bhakti. So Prabhupada's solution is you practice bhakti, gradually it becomes revealed in your heart. And this, whether we were there or whether we were here eternally, does not make change the, what you call, change the reality that we are currently in the material world, and we have to reach the spiritual reality. One. Two, it is no excuse. Okay, anyway, we am going to come back, so let me just remain in material reality. It is no excuse for that also, because we know the material reality is not the permanent reality, and Krishna explains that, and clearly he's saying, if you practice, you will come back to the spiritual reality. So whether we were there or here, so the our eternal home, like the destination is surely the spiritual reality, and the process is bhakti. And currently we are in the material reality. So we can focus more on how do we get to the spiritual reality than wondering how did we get here at the first place.
Okay, yeah, thank
I
you.
I have a quick question follow up to that, Prabhu, because I've heard the theory of like Nitya Baddha, Nitya Mukt, Nitya Siddh.
Parnika?
Is that, yeah, sorry. Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible. You're audible.
So I've heard the theory of Nitya Bhadda, Nitya Mukta, Nitya Siddh. Is that similar to what you're describing?
Mm-hmm.
Or is that is that a different school of thought?
No, it is the same thing that I'm just describing. So Nitya
Okay.
Bhatta, Nitya Siddha is Nitya Siddha, like, in different contexts, these words can different mean differently. Nitya Siddha in certain context only refers to personalities like Nanda, Yashoda, and all these personalities who are eternal associates of the Supreme Lord. And in another context, it can refer to devotees who have achieved spiritual perfection. And if you
But
read, yes.
but if we don't know where we actually are, right? Like, and that's a question that a lot of devotees ask, like, know where you are in the process, or you don't actually know, like, on your
Oh, really? Is there a doubt where we are currently?
no, like I meant like in the sense of like it like in terms of like relationship with the Supreme, right? Like you don't really have a clear idea of like
So that shows where we are.
yeah. Oh my
Because we
like
are not having, that shows already where we are. So if there is a relationship, we'll be aware of that. Because we are unaware of it because it is covered currently.
okay,
So that means we are in a Baddha state.
okay. Thank you.
So
I was
is there somebody else?
I was just going to say really quickly that
Nothing.
maybe the idea that maybe we're thinking that Krishna is in control, but of the different type of God mentality that people have where he is changing the rules on us, like because of the idea that, well, if I go up there, why did I come back down? And not taking the onus that our desires are why we came back down. So, like when you said your own desires are never taken away. So, yeah, you can actually stay there if you develop love of God and if you're really actually serving Krishna and realizing that is the best place to be. But once you desire not to do that, you're here. So I guess you could always come back and forth, but that doesn't mean that there's some sort of limited time that you'll have to come back. It's you yourself who have to kind of take onus for having come back.
Honestly, the topic is a lot more complicated. Like, I don't want to whitewash it. Very big people keep scratching their heads and pulling their hairs apart on this topic. So I would just like, usually my approach is like, if even big people are like, sometimes actually the big people get stuck. In big storms, like big trees get uprooted. Simple grass has no issue. So that is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, like, Prunada Pisunichena, like being humble and grounded, because the whole understanding is like, if like we need to have some allegiance to someone as a spiritual authority. So I would say, okay, then when I accept Srila Prabhupada as my spiritual authority, what is his approach? His approach is like, you're anyway here. That is a reality. And bhakti is only going to get you out of this reality. However bad the future, it will be much better than what you're currently in. Whether you're going to a spiritual reality which is permanent or which where you go back and forth, it is surely a much better reality to be there than the current reality we are in. So in that sense, like having that faith, and Krishna is again saying in the Gita, and in this whole chapter, he'll speak how the material reality is temporary and the spiritual reality is permanent. So at least, even if for God's sake, if somebody thinks, okay, they can go and come back, let them let them go and try a spiritual reality. And that's why Krishna is giving that guarantee. Once they try, they'll never come back. So then again, the same question comes. That means I never did I ever have the experience of it? Okay, back to square one. So, so it's like a little bit of a circular logic going on there. That's why Bhaktivinoda Thakur in one place says, even if it is explained to the intelligence of a conditioned living entity, it is very difficult to grasp it because it is beyond the realm of time. And currently, with all the fertile imagination that we have, we cannot understand what does it look to be away from a realm of time. How does reality look in a place where there is no time in the terms of future, past, and present? So yeah, it's like kind of a tough topic. Means usually a preacher tends to actually push one opinion very strongly and give all kinds of arguments and get away. But I don't want to insult the intelligence of my audience by just kind of whitewashing the subject matter. It is a complicated subject. So I would like to face reality, because what has happened in many times in I have seen in devotees is like they were convinced very easily by simple arguments at that level of understanding. Later, when they came across harsher arguments, like tough arguments, which does not actually is not very easy to resolve, then the faith gets shaken. So some things are difficult, and it's better to tell people, yeah, these are difficult topics. These are actually not very easy to actually grasp and say very clearly in our own conviction or understanding. So our like sources, okay, I accept what Srila Prabhupada says and I go with that faith because it is beyond my ability to resolve. Without that allegiance, people just can go all over the place. I can give you some arguments. I can already cut the arguments that you gave me. The whatever answered, I can cut my own answer. So it is a complicated subject matter. And so many people have different opinions, but the acharyas have many times clarified. And spiritual reality sometimes can be not like yes or no, or it's not that your answer is right and my answer is wrong. We both could be right in spiritual reality. That is also an option. So it's just that mind blowing. So to understand, yes, spiritual reality is inconceivable is on a certain level. That is also faith. To understand on a certain level, some truths are inconceivable for my meager intelligence. I'll probably never be able to fully grasp in this life. So that is also an aspect of faith. Not I'll figure out everything about Krishna and only then I'll have faith. Faith is reasonable trust by through reasonable experience. But our trust and experience cannot be 100%. Like our trust could be 100% without having 100% experience of who Krishna is. Like full understanding of Krishna is not possible. He is inconceivable. A certain aspect of spiritual reality will always be inconceivable in our uh, current state of consciousness, and we should be comfortable with that. That is an aspect of faith. In my personal understanding, I would say we should be able to be comfortable, because that is what is faith is in my understanding. Like, okay, having that faith that yes, some aspect of spiritual reality is inconceivable, I don't get it fully, but I whatever I so far I get it. My own chanting, does it give me the experience to trust? So that's why Prabhupada again says work on that immediate circle of control that we have, where you chant and experience Krishna personally, experience Krishna's hand in your life, experience Krishna's love in your life in a very tangible way through your practice and surrender. So then you can actually put faith in those topics when it's not very clear to in our heads. I'm not sure if I needed to delve on this topic more than necessary, but I just thought to add this because this keeps coming up and this is my honest opinion. If I have to answer, this will be my honest answer to people than just telling whether they came from there or whether they stayed here forever. More than that, I would go in this way in that particular topic. And there's one thing very important for us to note. There are two verses here, verse 5 and 7. An interesting aspect that I heard from Chaitanya Charan Prabhu is like in both these verses that he speaks about doubt. So Krishna says, don't doubt that if you remember me while quitting your body, you will achieve me. And again, he is saying, you will attain me without doubt. You just fix your mind on intelligence on me without doubt. So he is explicitly saying, don't doubt. I'm guaranteeing you that you will come to me. And again, you will see in verse 8, he does the same thing, but in a different positive way. He says, you are sure to reach me, Arjuna. If you meditate on me as a supreme lord, and you are constantly remembering me, you will surely reach me. So he is, in the matter of 4 verses, 3 places he is giving what do you call, assurance. Don't worry, without doubt you will come to me, without doubt you will come to me, surely you will reach me. So the only thing he's saying is, develop remembering me. Like, train your mind and intelligence to remember Krishna. That's what is the focus of this whole chapter. How to train Krishna, our minds and intelligence, when we are living now, to remember Krishna. Ritesh Prabhu?
Yeah, I just wanted to affirm this thing, like so we may be doubtful or not knowing about the spiritual reality. Of course we get the like knowledge about it, but the realization we may have, may have to go through a journey to develop that, to get free from all the doubts. But we can be ascertain or not doubtful about the material nature, material reality, which is all the anarthas that we have. That is pretty visible in a lot of times. So I think when we um, experience those, those are also self-sabotaging. So what I understand is, instead of delving too much into what the spiritual reality would be or whatever it is, what can I do in this material reality to actually uh, focus on Krishna and clearing, or basically uh, moving from material um, or anarthas to basically serving to Krishna, basically moving to that, taking that journey. So that is the reality that we should.
Paraphrase you, you're saying taking a stock of our own heart and understanding how much work is left, and then
Yes,
focusing on filling that gap so that we can actually realize Krishna in a better way. Though we have knowledge, the realization is being blocked by these anarthas that we have.
yes,
So by taking stock of it and working on them and practicing devotion, we can bridge that gap between our knowledge and realization.
yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think doubtful could be like we don't know about that, but this is a reality that we know. So why, that is where we are,
Yeah.
and just work from there. Yeah, I think that is what, yeah, I wanted to.
And also here, when Krishna is saying, do not doubt, not in the sense that Arjuna is doubting him, more in the sense of he wants to give assurance from his side. Like, he is offering extra assurance to give us, to build confidence in us, and also to emphasize how important remembering him is. Like, how that one thing can actually solve the problem. So that is also another reason that he's saying, the emphasizing it with, don't doubt, like, there is no doubt about this. If you do this, for sure you're that's going to happen, there is no doubt. So it's also to show that emphasis on that aspect of remembrance, how important it is
Yeah,
uh, in our spiritual life.
yeah, it's very much in line with how when we grow up, we don't know like what the future reality for us is, but our parents lovingly ask us to study. This is how, which what will actually make you, yeah, like go achieve things or be better. So it's like that, like they assure us in that way. So this is like, yeah, Krishna assuring
So
us.
the times when in that age, without doubt, it's not so much of love. you think, oh, why are they forcing me? We don't have any doubt. Like, we just, in some sense, like, we just hate it. But yeah, as you rightly said, they have seen the world, so they understand. Okay, this could be like, this could be better for you in that sense. It's coming from a right place of intention, at least. And what is the time? Okay, we have a few minutes left. So this is the topic that we discussed between the verses 5 and 8. That is, remembering Krishna at the end of life and attaining based on our, whatever we think, whatever is the state of our consciousness at the end of our life, that is what we will achieve in the future. And Krishna speaks about the importance of remembering him in the verses 7 and 8, how he is assuring if anyone develops that remembrance, through dedicating their actions to Krishna and training the mind and intelligence, then eventually that person can actually reach Krishna without fail. So the next section is a longer section. I don't think we are going to complete that, but I just thought um, have like a rest of the chapter we can just do an overview kind of a thing, so that next week we can begin in detail. So if you have access to the translations of this chapter, please access it now, because I'm just going to give an overall like a flow for all the verses that we have from 9 onwards to until the end of the chapter. So if you see verses 9 to 13, Krishna speaks about, okay, you need to develop remembrance, but how it can be developed. So he starts speaking about a particular process of developing remembrance of him. So if you go through that process, Krishna will be specifically speaking about uh, like focusing on him as the all-knowing, as the oldest, as the ultimate controller, smallest of the small, biggest of the big, maintainer of everything. So in this way, he's giving a certain meditation, how to meditate on him. And then also he's saying, okay, at the time of death, means as if you will know what is your time of death. Like that's my first thought when I read this. At the time of death, how will I know what is the time of my death? So assuming that this person, because we are speaking about yogi, we are not speaking about common folks. The discussion here is about yogis who have trained all their lives for this particular moment. So it's very different. Even if you had experience in your life of your grandparents and all these people from the past century, I had those experiences, people telling clearly, okay, my time has come, I'm going. And these are very normal people in terms of Hare Krishna's understanding. They are very normal people. They were not like exclusive spiritualist or anything like that, but they lived a life of sattva. They lived a life of simple goodness and a very plain kind of a sattvic life. And they had devotion in their own way. But I have seen my grandparents telling, okay, it's time, I'm leaving. And it's like kind of shocking to know that now, okay, how did these people know that they're going to leave, and they were very peaceful and about that, because they lived a sattvic life. And but we are not even speaking about such common folks. We are speaking about yogi who has been training for this moment of death all his life, and specifically going to the forest and meditating, and that is the focus. They are waiting for this moment. So these people are much more aware on a subtle level what is coming. So he's saying at the time of death, this yogi can fix their life between their eyebrows and with full concentration and remember the Supreme with devotion. And and the rest of their lives, like until this moment, what they did was they practiced celibacy and they chanted the mantra Om, and then they remembered God, remembered Krishna, remembered Supreme. So he's saying, I will explain this process. How does this work? So he explains that process in 12th and 13th verses. He says, first of all, withdraw all the sensory engagements. That basically one has to go to the forest for this process. Withdraw all the sensory engagements, close off all external distractions, focus the mind on the heart, and while directing life energy to the top of the head. This is called as the kundalini process, the chakras and all those things. So this is an yogic method, so where this person is raising his life energy from the various level chakras and he's bringing it to the top of the head. And in that meditative state, this person is chanting Om, remembering the Supreme Lord. So in this way, if someone leaves their body, then they can reach the spiritual realm. How easy that process is, right? Sounds so like approachable. So that is why Krishna speaks then in the 14, 15, and 16. Okay, remembrance through bhakti. Okay, Arjuna can be completely petrified hearing that explanation. So he's kind of giving him a confidence. Okay, don't worry. You can constantly remember me and be devoted to me. And that devotional approach can make it easy to reach me. So he's comparing it in one sense. He's saying, okay, the constant remembrance and devotion actually make it easy to come to me. So he says, for such kind of devoted yogis who attain Krishna, they become freed from rebirth. And then they say all planets of places of rebirth, all the material planets, there is again birth. But one once reaches Krishna's place, there is no material body, so there is no rebirth, because it is an eternal situation. Spiritual realm cannot have material body. So once you don't have a material body, you have a spiritual body, then there is no question of again taking a different body. So then the natural question is, uh, like coming to the next topic, okay, what is that comparison between material and spiritual worlds? Because you are speaking about practicing devotion and achieving that spiritual realm, how is it different from the material realm? So Krishna explains that in these verses from 17 to 21. We will kind of see these verses next week again, but I'm just giving a quick roll. So he's speaking about the duration of Brahma's day and night, how Brahma's day and night affects us in the lower realms, and how we go through annihilation and like kind of creation and destruction again, and this cycle continues. But there is a separate spiritual nature which is unaffected by this constantly changing material nature. So he speaks that eternal man, unmanifest, unchanging nature is that spiritual nature. And he says that is the ultimate destination. So if one practices devotion, so that is the spiritual abode that one achieves after being liberated from this material world. So then he speaks about how to achieve that supreme. Then he says through unalloyed devotion. Very clear verse. He directly says bhaktya to, like he says, very easily through the process of bhakti, this supreme destination could be achieved. And so now he says, he discusses about this last topic, that yoga versus bhakti. Okay, we spoke about remembering at the time of death. So how does these yogis exactly do it? What they do at the time of death? So there are two ways of leaving the body for a yogi. So if he has more desires to enjoy this world, he can leave at the time of darkness, so that he will achieve a spiritual higher realm within this world, enjoy there, but he will come back to this material realm. And that's also material realm, but it's a higher realm. It's like going to a retreat. So you enjoy there exclusively and you get back home to earn more to go back to the retreat. So the same way, so this person, this yogi still has a lot of material desires to enjoy. So he goes to a higher spiritual realm, enjoys there, comes back, will again work, will again focus on meditation, and again go back, come back. The moment he feels, oh, enough, I've seen enough of these Disney worlds, so I don't want these anymore, I'm done. So then he can actually leave at the time of light and actually go back to the supreme. So the facility is there for a constant evolution. So what Krishna says, oh, hearing this, if Arjuna feels very discouraged, oh my god, I don't know what is the path, time of light, what is the time of darkness, yeah, I don't know all these things. He says, don't worry about these things, don't take anxiety. Krishna is saying, oh, you be aware of these two paths but completely remain undisturbed. You don't need to worry about all of these things. What you need to do is you just stay firmly devoted to me. That's all. You take care of that part, I'll take care of the other parts. You don't worry about when you're dying, I'll worry about what happens when you pass. I'll remember you. You just worry about becoming firmly devoted to me. And that's when in the last verse he says, if you are completely devoted to me, you achieve the results of studying the Vedas, doing all the sacrifices, austerities, charity, philosophical pursuits. All of that is covered if you are actually yukta, yogi paramsthanam upaiti divyam. If you are a yogi who's continuously in touch with me in devotion, then you achieve all of these things very easily without having to bother about whether you are dying in the light or darkness and all that. So we will see these things in little bit more detail, bringing out lessons and seeing reflective questions and other details that we did not cover today. If you have any questions, post it on the WhatsApp group that you want me to answer. So I'll also include it in the presentation for your next week. And also go through this chapter. I'll post the notes as soon as possible for this chapter. And so go through this chapter, read the purpose of verses 7, verses 8. Such a nice chapter if you want to have, like, it's a smaller chapter. I will also post other purpose that you could read. So come a little bit more engaged with the chapters and we will complete the chapter next week. So is there any, I see here. Okay, Chinmay, I'll stay on the call. You can just remain on the call and we can speak. Okay. So thank you everyone
Thank you,
for joining.
Prabhu.
Extremely grateful for your time and see you guys next week and hope to complete the chapter 8.
Guruji.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Hare Krishna,
Yeah,
Prabhuji, thank you.
thank you for
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
very
Hare
thank
Krishna. Thank you, Babaji.
you. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Divya Mataji. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Yogeshwari Mataji. Thank you, Chakresh. Hari Bol, Shri Rupa. Hare Krishna. Oh, I don't see Chinmay here. Okay. What happened? So, thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.